Welcome back to From a Fan's Eye View. I'm Sam, and today, guys, I want to talk to you about my list for my top 5 breakout players this season. Now, to kind of explain what I mean by that, I kind of want to talk about players who are a few years into their career now and are starting to take that next leap into becoming one of the better players in this league. Some players giving a case to why they could be an all-star this year, or players who have made the jump from being just barely a bench role player to now being a starting player on their team and being a really important part on their team. This list isn't really in a necessary order. They're just 5 players that I really want to talk about that are having really good seasons and I think deserve their flowers. But before I get into the list, I want to ask you guys, you could please drop a like, maybe leave a comment on today's video, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Let me know what you guys think of my list. If there's any players you think I should have talked about, you think there are players on your team that should be given their respect and are having really good seasons and aren't being talked about enough, I'd love to hear from you guys and what you guys think about some of these players that are on my list or players that you guys think should be talked about more often as well. But let's not waste any more time and let's get into the list. First player I want to talk about who just might be the most improved player of the year is Jaylen Johnson. Standing at 6'9", this forward is very versatile on both ends of the floor. He brings a combination of ball handling skills, court vision, and defensive prowess. His athleticism and ability to impact various facets of the game makes him a valuable asset for the Hawks. Offensively, Johnson stands out with the ball handling and playmaking ability, but it's his finishing that's really, really good. Now, Trae Young has played with quite a few bigs that are able to finish really well off his lobs. As we know, Trae Young is a very good playmaker. But the thing that's different about Jaylen Johnson is that not only is he athletically gifted, but his three-point shooting is phenomenal as well. So look at these numbers here. I mean, through the first 25 games, he's scoring about 15 points per game, which is almost triple from last year. He's getting around 3 assists, 8 boards, and he's shooting upwards of 40% from 3 as he was shooting only 28% from last year. And this is something that Trae Young really hasn't been able to work with over his years with Atlanta. He's usually had a good big that can finish inside well off his lobs, but he's never had another guy that can pop out on the picks instead of just rolling all the time. You can see a lot in these highlights that once he's downhill, Johnson is very hard to stop. His athleticism and his strength overpowers a lot of defenders, and off these pick and rolls when he has this much space generated because of the gravity that Trae Young creates out in the three-point land, it gives him a lot of steam for him to build up going downhill and to finish hard at the rim. I think because of his size, his speed, and athleticism, you can really see Jaylen Johnson becoming a pretty solid defender as well because of his length and his speed and athleticism, and his ability to secure rebounds is pretty cut and clear, is he averaging around 8 rebounds per game. He can definitely create for himself within the mid-range as well, but I don't think this is the shot that the Hawks want, or maybe Jaylen Johnson wants either, as he sometimes struggles with these mid-range fades, but it is something that he can go to every once in a while when his initial drive is walled off from good defense. But like I said, looking at these stats, I mean, he's gone from a guy who's just coming off the bench initially, only scoring 5.5 points per game, grabbing 4 boards, and barely even shooting 30% from 3. He's now starting, averaging 15 and 8, giving good playmaking as well. He's usually making the right reads, not making silly turnovers by any means, but he's shooting at an elite clip as well now at 40%. And this is giving a lot of help to space out the floor and also give Trae Young the ability to pick and pop and pick and roll with the same guy as well. And I think that's really important, and it's a huge improvement for Jaylen Johnson, as this is why I'm giving him one of the spots on this list. So coming up next on our list, we have Tyrese Maxey. Now, something about Tyrese Maxey is that a lot of fans didn't know what to expect with him, as he had been given a backseat role, or maybe not given a backseat role, but he wasn't utilized nearly as much because of James Harden being on the team. And so this year is the first year we're getting to see Tyrese in controlling the ball more often, being the point guard and running things, and he has shown some pretty incredible stuff. Going from his stats from last year, he played 60 games, averaging 20 and 3.5, shooting 50% from the field and a great 43% from deep. Now you'll see those numbers have dipped quite a bit, going to 49% and 38% from deep, but I think that's going to be more so because of the fact that he's now probably being guarded by the best player or the best defensive player on each team, as before that Harden was probably taking on that role. But he's averaging 6 more points per game and almost averaging 7 assists. And Tyrese is a really good ball handler. He doesn't turn over the ball extremely poorly, not really bad decisions. He creates shots really well for himself. And for a guy who's averaging 26 points on his team, you'd think that he'd be the one leading his team as points, but the reigning MVP, Joel Embiid, is also on his team, dropping 30 plus every single game. So it's still impressive to the fact that he has a guy who's scoring that much and he's still getting this many opportunities to put up shots for himself. Another thing that you have to give Maxey credit for is the fact that he is a very, very solid defender, something that a lot of people have criticized Harden over the past. He's explosive, he's athletic, and he's quick, and he's going to stay on top of his guy as much as he possibly can. Maxey has very quick hands, his lateral movement is very quick. It makes him a pesky on-ball defender, even off-ball as well, staying glued to his guys as they go around off-ball screens and such. He's always disrupting plays that the opponents are trying to set up. I think it's been really fun to watch a guy like Tyrese Maxey step up in his role and take over the role that Harden was supporting for them, and not only fulfilling it, but going above and beyond what most people were expecting. The 76ers have not missed a single step this year, and Embiid may be having even a better year this year than the year before, but Maxey has been a huge help in the 76ers being one of the best teams in the East, as they really have not missed a step since getting rid of Harden. It's pretty scary now to think about that, even without Harden, that Maxey's going to continue to drop 25 plus per night, and you still got a few other guys on the bench, or not on the bench, but a few other guys on the team like Tobias Harris, who can still drop a cool 20, 25, almost 30, on some nights. And you still have to worry about Maxey, and you still have to worry about Embiid. I mean, the 76ers have a very solid team put together still, and I think trading Harden was probably the right move for the 76ers, and letting Maxey develop and getting the play time and show what he really can do, because this guy is definitely going to be a special player years to come, and that's why he earned a spot on my list. Now, next up on this list, I have Alperen Şengün. Now, Şengün, I think, probably caught a lot of people by surprise. Maybe not Rockets fans, and honestly, probably not me as well. If you're an OG fan of the channel, you probably noticed one of our old videos with me and Justin. We talked about ranking centers, and I was very high on ranking Alperen Şengün up there because I think he has a really cool skill set, and I think it's very closely similar to players like Domantas Sabonis and Nikola Jokic, as he's basically like a playmaking center, or he can pass the ball very well. Şengün possesses a very unique, versatile play style that sets him apart on the court. One of his standout qualities is his agility and mobility for a player of his size. He moves fluidly, allowing him to navigate through defenses and make plays both in transition and in the half-court settings. As we look back here at his stats, you'll notice that he's improved about 7 points per game, only assists more per game. But if you watch Alperen Şengün, you know that his court vision and court awareness is extremely high. And it's not just him making the right pass, it's also the difficulty of passes that he's also making. He's a very good player down low in the post, and he's also extremely good in the pick and roll, as he's really aggressive attacking the rim. I think it's been really awesome to see the Rockets utilize Alperen Şengün a lot more going into this season, instead of going for more traditional guard players like Jalen Green, seeing what he can do as a shot creator himself. But I think that the Rockets organization probably noticed the odd shots that Jalen Green takes during games, and I think they like the way that Alperen Şengün plays. And when he's related to players like Domantas Sabonis or Nikola Jokic, those are guys who are very unique players at the power forward center position. And I think they wanted to continue to roll and develop with Alperen Şengün, and maybe giving him the keys to being the leader for this team for years to come. Şengün's defense isn't anything I would say extremely spectacular. I wouldn't say that he's, anything like a depoy by any necessary means, but he gets the job done on the defensive end. He can hold his own. He has a pretty decent defensive rating compared to other centers around him. But when you're a player who's as good offensively as he is, it almost doesn't really matter if his defense is subpar, as we could even see that with Jokic. We've said that Jokic before is not an extremely great defender. He's a very solid rebounder, of course, but he's not a crazy shot blocker the way that, Rudy Gobert or even Walker Kessler or Miles Turner, as those are all very, very solid defensive centers and shot blocking centers. But when Alperen Şengün is putting up the numbers that he puts up on offense as a center, you can let a little bit slack when it comes to defensive end. But like I said, I don't think he's that terrible on the defensive end. I think he puts up pretty good defensive rating numbers, and he holds his own pretty well. Another thing that I kind of wanted to point out, I thought it was kind of funny, I've seen a few tweets or like memes about it, is that they compare Jokic and Sabonis and Şengün all to each other, and they use like a Pokemon evolution, and they go from like Charmander to Charizard to, and so on. And I think it's kind of funny, but I think what's even more funny is the fact that I don't think that he would be the base level Pokemon. I think that Şengün will, maybe not yet, but I think he's going to be better than Sabonis. I think he'll solidify himself as a better player than Sabonis is. And, maybe that's a hot take, but I think that with how young he is and how well he's developing, especially throughout this year from what we've seen so far, I think that he's only going to get better, and I think you're going to see him putting up numbers very close to Nikola Jokic in the near future. Now, leading into our next player on this list, I have Scotty Barnes. Now, Scotty has been putting in a lot of work, and one of the main things that you'll see about Scotty is his improved three-point shooting. He went from shooting a measly 28% from three last year to now shooting 37% from three this year. And he's not just taking the catch and shoot opportunities, he's taking the shots that he creates off the pick and roll, and he's gaining a lot of confidence with his own shot. And that's something that a lot of players who have struggled with their jump shot in the past, can't really seem to find that confidence when they're trying to, work on their new jumper or, try to develop it over time, and it's something I have a lot of respect for with some players. We've seen Lonzo Ball, when he came in the league, obviously a very unorthodox shot. And one of the things that he was willing to do was change his jumper completely, start from scratch, and develop a brand new jumper. And, that takes a lot. That takes a lot of courage. We've seen some instances where coaches say to not change a player's jump shot because of how it already works. As we've seen with like Tyrese Haliburton, who's a very solid shooter from three, but he's another player who doesn't have a very, normal jumper. But with Scotty Barnes, we've seen him develop his three-point shot, and it's a huge step up in his game. And if you look back at his stats from last year, he's averaging an extra 5 points per game, almost an extra assist per game, grabbing a few more boards, and like I said, that three-point shooting is becoming a big part of his game. And we already knew that Scotty Barnes was becoming a really good defender, but he's almost averaging almost a full more block per game this year, and he's also getting another steal and a half as well. I mean, defensively, he's a fantastic player, and the offense is coming along right with it, and he's going to be probably one of the best guys on this Raptors team if they just continue to keep him on the team for years to come. I feel like there's another time where we're seeing a forward or like a big who's becoming very well at distributing the ball, as it's not very often we see a power forward averaging 5.5, almost 6 assists per game. And I think that's one of the better things about Scotty Barnes, is his ability to play, make, and create for others. I think another thing that's super underrated with Scotty Barnes is his ability to read the open floor in transition. He really likes to push the pace and use his length and speed to get down the court and not allow teams to set up in transition. There's a lot of plays where you can see him pushing it down the floor, and his ability to quickly read the defense as they're coming down in transition to find the open man on the break is something truly special. He's really good at finding these open players on the break. think going forward for Scotty Barnes, I think it's really important that he continues to develop a mid-range game, as I think he already has a pretty solid game within the mid-range. But if he wants to become one of the more elite players in this league, it's really important for him to develop a mid-range shot, as that's some of the shots that some of the most elite scorers in this league take on a nightly basis. And with the confidence that he's continued to show when shooting the 3-ball this year, continues to grow as he takes these mid-range shots, Scotty Barnes is going to become an elite scorer in this league, and on top of that, he's already becoming an elite defender. So it's going to be really scary to go up against Scotty Barnes in the future. So the last player that I want to talk about on this list is Coby White. Now, Coby White's kind of an interesting one because I feel like Coby White has already shown what he's been able to do since he came into the league. As his first 3 years, he was averaging around 14 points per game, getting around 3.5 assists as well, and shooting pretty efficiently on top of all that. But I think something that happened with Coby White is that he was told to take a back seat and be coming off the bench instead as the backup point guard, as they had Lonzo Ball for a few years. And he was only starting in 2 games last year, and he played in 74 of them. And so his numbers took a drop, as we can see here. He was barely averaging 10 points per game, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, and still shooting pretty solid from the field on top of that. But this year, he's been giving the starting guard role again, and with the way things have been going in Chicago, and things have not been looking very well at all for Chicago, I think Coby White has taken this chance to show what he's really all about. As you can see now, he's averaging 18.5, 5 assists, almost 5 rebounds, and he's still shooting it really efficiently and even better from 3 this year than he was last year. And like I said, we've already seen him through the first few years averaging almost similar numbers. And so I think with him taking the back seat, it wasn't the right choice for them. And even though I know that they had another solid guard in Lonzo, I think that Coby White's taking advantage of Lonzo being out and injured and showing that he's capable of being one of the next best players in this league. Coby White brings a combination of sharp shooting, ball handling, and a knack of making plays. And he's got great speed and agility, and it makes him a constant offensive threat every single night. He's excelling as a scoring guard. His ability to shoot from deep range, drive to the basket, finish in traffic, makes him a really well-rounded offensive player. I think it's really cool to see a player who was told to take a back seat and come off the bench, come back into the mix of things, and present to the organization what he can really do is a really cool thing, because I think he's always known what he's been capable of doing, as we saw it over the first few years of his career. And so, like I said, I think him coming back into the starting lineup and starting every game, playing 35 minutes per, in only one season before this year, he played over 30 minutes, and that was in his sophomore season, which he was averaging 15 and 4 in. So I think that he knew, and I feel like the Bulls organization should have known, that he was a player that they already had elite talent in at the guard position. And so him coming back out, starting in all these games and playing 35 minutes a night on a Bulls team that's been really struggling, I think he's showcasing everything that he's been able to do. He's always been capable of doing, and he's showing the organization that he probably should have been the guy to be in that starting role from the get. And I think as the season progresses and we possibly see DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine being traded towards the end of February when the trade deadline comes up, I think that you're going to see Coby White continue to score the ball even more. You're going to see him playmaking more. I think maybe he's not going to be given the keys as the next leader of the Bulls team, but he's going to be the main guy that they are going to go to run their team as the season goes on, after LaVine and maybe DeMar are both traded from the Bulls. Well, guys, that will do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that you liked the list that I put together. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if there are any players that you think I missed out on that maybe I could have or should have talked about that you think aren't getting enough respect, please leave a comment, leave a few things about them. We love to read your guys' comments. We read them all the time, reply to as many as we can when you guys do leave comments. But if you guys liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. The support helps us out a ton. We really appreciate you guys and the recent support that we've been getting over the last few weeks. But from me and Justin, we thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.